did no good. They didn't actually help. But it was a sort of a quick knee-jerk reaction to what was going on. I also want to give you two older examples. The media likes to portray this all as new. Stuxnet is unprecedented, never seen before. These cyber attacks are new in the 21st century. They're actually not. I did an interview with a Russian newspaper about 2 weeks ago, and the reporter asked me, why is Russia portrayed as the aggressor here? We're blamed for Estonia, we're blamed for Georgia. We're always blamed as the perpetrator of these cyber attacks. Why us? And I reminded the reporter that you guys were the first victim of a cyber attack, 1982, right? Almost 30 years ago. The United States inserted malicious code into Canadian software being shipped to Russia to control the Trans-Siberian pipeline. And do look it up. The resultant explosion is still the largest non-nuclear explosion on our planet. And that is a direct result of malicious code in a cyber attack. I mean, that sounds a lot like Stuxnet, doesn't it? Right? And it was 30 years previously. 1991, as a precursor to the first Gulf War, United States inserted malicious code into printers that was sent to Iraq. And the code helped disable the Iraqi air defense system. Again, not confirmed, but widely believed to be true. And so here are two examples from the previous century where cyber attacks were used as part of war or as part of a broader conflicts. So, sort of think about all of these examples. We have examples of very different sorts of attacks, very different sorts of perpetrators. And when you think about defending yourself in cyberspace, let me do it this way. When you're attacked in cyberspace, there are a variety of different institutions you can call on to defend yourself, right? The police, the military, whatever organization in your country does counterterrorism, a set of commercial products and services, your corporate lawyers, right? All of these are all possible defenses. And the legal framework in which you defend yourself against any particular attack depends on two things: who's attacking you and why. The problem with attacks in cyberspace is that when you're being attacked, the two things you don't know are who's attacking you and why. And that makes defense difficult. I mean, the adversaries run the spectrum. Hackers and criminals and the politically motivated hackers we've been talking about, spies, terrorists, militaries. It's a very different set of attackers, but they're all using the same tactics now. You can't tell them apart. Right? It used to be if it was a guy with a gun, you'd call the police. If it was a tank, you'd call the military. It's not that easy anymore. Think about the different tactics we're seeing. Theft of data, eavesdropping, data manipulation, denial of service, sabotage. Right? These are tactics of criminals. These are tactics of militaries. And they're tactics of everybody in between. Right, a little side note on sabotage. Against targets, it's relatively straightforward. Against networks, it's more complicated. Right? Destroying an enemy network is the least useful thing you can do with it. Right? The most useful thing you can do is control it. Selectively add and delete messages. That's the best. If you can't control it, then you want to eavesdrop on it. Right? Listen to everything being said. Only if you can't do that do you destroy it. Right? It is the least useful thing to do. So a lot of these attacks are what's being called advanced persistent threat, APT. It's a new buzzword in cybersecurity. I tend to hate buzzwords, but this one I'm a little bit growing on. Because what it differentiates is from the normal criminal attack. Right? The normal criminal attack is, the hackers want to break into the bank. And, the bank doesn't have to be perfectly secure. It just needs to be secure enough, more secure than its competitors, and that's fine. For an advanced persistent threat, the bad guys want to get into you. Right? Anonymous wanted to attack H.P. Gary. Any company wouldn't do, they wanted them. Right? And against an attacker that is sufficiently motivated, funded, and skilled, there basically is no adequate defense. Right? I mean, you're done. There's nothing you can do. In cyberspace, the advantage on the side of the attacker. Right? This stuff changes. If you think about the history of warfare, the relative advantage would shift back and forth between attacker and defender. So if you think about the American Civil War, right, the mid-1800s, the defender really had the advantage. That weapons were powerful enough that they would kill easily, and attacking was hard. It took Napoleon to understand how to develop offensive tactics using these better guns before the balance shifted to the attacker. And it's generally stayed there until machine guns and chemical weapons became prevalent. You move to World War I, and the defender had the advantage. When you look at trench warfare, attacking tended to be foolhardy. Defending was easy. And it really wasn't until Hitler and tanks and blitzkrieg warfare that we figured out how to attack again. Right? So in warfare, it bounces back and forth. Cyberspace is the same. Right now, the advantage is the attacker. It's much easier to attack than defend. That's just the way it goes. So this advanced persistent threat is real. I mean, it's not made up. And how to deal with it isn't obvious. Right? And it is all this politically motivated hacking. And by politics, I mean something very broad here. Right? It's nationalistic, it's ethical, it's religious, it's against governments, it's against institutions, it's against companies. We are seeing environmental attacks from environmental organizations against pharmaceutical companies, against oil companies. I mean, this is all the same. It's politically motivated hacking. It is not profit-motivated hacking. It's not criminal hacking. It's politically motivated. So let's talk about the politics of cyber war, because I think that's really what's important right now. The world is gearing up for this. Right? The U.S. Cyber Command, as of last year, became, quote, fully operational, whatever that actually means. The U.K. talks about their cyber capabilities. NATO talks about its cyber capabilities. China makes a big deal about its cyber capabilities. Certainly other countries, although less being made publicly. In these countries, there's a power struggle over who's in charge of the nation's cyber defense. There's a power struggle between the police and the military. Right? In the United States, you saw it play out between the FBI and DOD. And FBI lost and DOD won. The U.S. Cyber Command is co-located with the National Security Agency, has the same commander. So we know who won this power struggle. Right? The NSA is in charge of United States cyber war. Right? Where it's located makes a big difference. And this is a power struggle over budget, over power. There's a power struggle between government and private enterprise. Who gets to control critical infrastructure security? That's being played out in the United States and other countries. Right? And in these power struggles, the metaphor matters. I mean, this is why I think using the term cyber war is so dangerous. Because if you're looking at FBI versus NSA, if you call it a war, it's kind of obvious who gets it. You give it to the NSA, you give it to the military. Right? And that also determines what defense looks like. Right? To the police, we are all citizens to protect. To the military, we are all a population to be subdued. When you use the term war, you reinforce the notion that we are all helpless. Right? We have nothing to do with war. That's military's purview. Right? If it's a war, we need someone else to protect us. If it's a war, we should be scared.